Hey guys, Michael here. In this video I'm going to be comparing the older Penryn MacBook Pro with the new Unibody Macbook Pro. A lot of hype has gone into the Unibody and its advantages over the previous generation, but in this video we're going to go through a few categories and actually compare the new and the old MacBook Pros. Looking at it from the front, you can tell that Apple actually changed a lot. Major difference is that the Super Drive is no longer on the front on the new Unibody MacBook Pro. Also, what Apple did was, coming from their PowerBook G4, the design hasn't changed greatly. So what they did was, they just popped on an RF sensor here when they needed to have RF onto their computers. Now with the Unibody design, Apple has actually made the RF port look relatively nice on the machine. Also next to it you have your sleep light, where on the old MacBook Pro, the sleep light was right here next to the mechanized latch, whereas the newer MacBook Pro has a magnetic latch. What Apple also did with the Unibody design was moved all the ports to one side. So as you can see here, you have your power port, Ethernet, FireWire 800. There's no longer a FireWire 400 port on the MacBook Pros. Your two USB ports, your mini display port, which upon looking at it, I think is stupid to have in the middle. Because if you're going to be plugging in an external display, of course the cable is going to be moving to the back of the machine, so that's just going to cause some clutter on your desk. And then you also have your audio ports for your headphones and your line in. Also right here, instead of being on the bottom, now you have your battery indicator. On the old machine you had your power on this side, as well as a USB port and your audio cables, as well as your express port. Same as on the new Unibody. Now on the other side, Apple put their lock part here for Kingston lock, and also moved the Super Drive to this side. Apple, for the older generation, the Penryn MacBook Pro, left you with your DVI port here, Ethernet, both FireWire 400 and 800. And FireWire 400, although not a big deal to me because FireWire 800 is backwards compatible, some people are a little bit upset that Apple took that out. You also have your second USB port and your lock on this side. Another thing Apple did was they altered the way the battery goes into the MacBook Pro. So if we open this up over here, the battery comes right out. You have access to the hard drive and the RAM just by unscrewing some screws. But the problem is, if you need to get in there, obviously your machine has to be down because the first thing you're taking out, is the battery. If we look on the new Unibody design, you just push down, the little flap opens. You get your little piece, shows you what to do, and now you have access right away to your hard drive, as well as your battery and RAM just by pulling these flaps, and you're good to go. Now on the 17-inch MacBook Pro, the battery is not user replaceable, so you're not going to see this on your 17-inch MacBook Pro, but on your 15-inch Unibody, you will have that option. Alright, so on the Unibody, the biggest difference when you look directly at it is Apple is really trying to add that black finish to it. So if you look around the display, and even by the EyeSight camera, you can see that the display is surrounded by blackness, if you will. Also, this part is also black, where on the other, it's gray. The keys are also black, and they're also more spaced out. But according to a little bit of a test I performed, the older keyboard does feel a little bit better. Also, if you look at the trackpads, the new MacBook Pro does not have an actual click button. In fact, if you can hear that, you're able to actually click all the way up here. Not all the way at the top. I'm not sure why they took it out of being fully done, but it clicks a little bit. Also, the grill for the speakers, the holes are much smaller on the new Unibody design, which I think is actually a good improvement over it. I find that some dust and some dirt can get into the speaker grill on the Penryn MacBook Pro, and I think Apple did a nice job just adding a subtle improvement by making those holes smaller. Now just a quick boot up comparison, even though this Unibody will boot up directly to the desktop and the Penryn will not, but we'll just see. So 1, 2, 3. Alright, so they're both about done now, and it was interesting how the Unibody MacBook Pro actually took much longer for it to first register that it was being booted up. Apparently there was an update, so that may have been an issue with why it was such a slowdown. And so I'm gonna say that they were probably both about the same. A little bit of a slowdown on the Unibody booting up, and then I also had to type in my password on my machine. This is a friend. I'm at a friend's house. I don't own both of these, in case you were wondering. So that's just a quick boot up comparison. Just something interesting to note. The old Penryn MacBook Pro, the full charge battery milliamp count is 5,596. And if we just pan over to the Unibody design, you can see that the full charge capacity is 4,496. So that's about 1,000 milliamp difference. Alright, so now we're going to test battery. So if Ryan can just unplug that on the count of 3, 1, 2, 3. We're just going to give that a second to calculate. Alright, preliminary, it looks like the Penryn with nothing running has 6 hours of battery life, and the Unibody has 5 hours and 47 minutes. Keep in mind that's without the discrete card. Time will be lower if you end up using the graphics card for that. So now we're going to test a little bit of a performance, and we're also going to test heat. Obviously, on this Penryn, it's going to take longer to encode because the video is longer in length and also HD. We're exporting on the same settings in iMovie 09, and so we're going to get started. So 3, 2, 1. If you look at the heat, that's 55 degrees Celsius. If we move over to this other one, that's 35 degrees Celsius, or 47 degrees Celsius. Now if you look at the Penryn MacBook Pro, you can see that right now the CPU usage or the heat is about 66 degrees Fahrenheit. And if we look at the power usage, the battery is using 34.24 watts, so that's a fair chunk of electricity. Now if we move over to the Unibody, it is at 53 degrees, but the battery is only using 24.64 watts, so it's about 10 more watts on the Penryn MacBook Pro. So what that's telling me is obviously it's going to heat up faster and it's going to stay hot longer. So again, 51 degrees on the Unibody, and right now 67 degrees on now 68 on the Penryn. Now if we look at the CPU, a graph and some numbers about it, the CPU usage is practically the same. I mean, if you look here, we'll just use idle. It's about 54, 56 that's not being used. If we move over to the other machine, idle is about 58, so it's about the same. It's using the same amount of processor speed to do this, and again, this is approaching 70 degrees Celsius, and the other on the Unibody is not getting that hot. It's staying around 52 degrees. So pretty much it's a definite conclusion that the Unibody MacBook Pro, Apple changed something about how heat is distributed and how the machine cools it, because the CPUs are doing practically the same task, and the fans are at the same temperature, the fans are at the same speed, and you're looking at 70 degrees Celsius compared to 54 degrees Celsius, so obviously there's a big difference there. Alright guys, so that's pretty much just a comparison of the Penryn MacBook Pro with the newer Unibody MacBook Pro. Overall, there's only a few cosmetic differences that change between the two. Obviously, one being a little bit of a slimmer design, a magnetic latch, a newer keyboard that has keys that are separated, and also a larger trackpad that actually is a button in itself. But other than that, if we look at performance, it's about the same. Heat, the Unibody does win on that, but overall it's about the same with performance. Size is about the same, even though the Unibody is a little bit smaller. So obviously it's a nice improvement, but I think a lot of people underestimate the older design of the MacBook Pro because, again, it really was a good design in its day.